a label maker, and a gun. One fires words, the other fires bullets. But depending on how we use them, they can be equally divisive, damaging, and even destructive. Science tells us words matter. Research shows labels have a powerful influence on what we think and who we become. I was born and raised in a predominantly white, very small town in California. I was labeled a chink by some, and I was teased and taunted in a lot of other ways because of my Asian face. But I mostly ignored those incidents, wore my Korean American label with pride, while doing everything I could to try to fit in. But I never really felt like I belonged. So for college, I chose a university with a diverse student body and a pretty large Asian community. Yet I was still labeled an outsider. I felt the sting of rejection when I was labeled a Twinkie and a banana by my fellow Korean Americans. Apparently, spending my childhood trying to fit in with white America had an unintended consequence. Now I was viewed as yellow on the outside, but white on the inside. After college, I started my career in broadcast news. My first job took me to another small, mostly white town, this time in Idaho. I also got stuck with more labels: Connie Chung, the token Asian, and the forever foreigner. Once I was covering a nasty accident scene, and this well-intentioned couple came up to me and said, "Honey, are you lost? Do you speak English?" I whispered back, "I speak English for a living, and probably better than you do." Feel a little bad about that, though. I have similar stories from my reporting days in Oklahoma City and in Houston. I have been a television anchor and reporter in Philadelphia now for more than 15 years. It is the fourth largest market in the country, and I love my job. Our generous viewers often tell me they enjoy watching me on TV, they like my work. Sometimes they even ask for my autograph. And that makes me feel so good. It makes me feel like I'm accepted, I finally belong somewhere. That when people see me, instead of seeing the face of a foreigner, they see the face of a valued community member. And my label of television journalist trumps that of any other. But I got a jolt of reality one beautiful September day. It was Labor Day weekend. I was walking in our neighborhood just blocks away from our house where 2 young kids were waiting for me. My husband and I were getting ready to celebrate our 7th wedding anniversary, sans our children whom we adore but do not need to spend 24/7 with. I know, parents, you hear me. I was feeling on top of the world and enormously grateful and frankly, untouchable. When suddenly, as I was crossing the street at a crosswalk on a green light, a driver turned and came this close to hitting me. The driver and I exchanged words about who had the right of way. And then as she drove off, she yelled, "This is America." Those 3 words felt like a slap in my face. They took me back to every label that had deepened my sense of other. You see, all those incidents I thought I had ignored, let roll off my back, actually hadn't gone anywhere. They had been weighing me down, and those 3 words, "This is America," added to their weight and brought me to my knees. They unleashed in me an anger I didn't know existed, but now could no longer contain, especially as I thought about my children, who look a lot like me. So I finally took action. I responded to that driver in a live Facebook video that I hashtagged with that same phrase, "This is America," taking ownership of that driver's words. And the video went viral. 3 million views, 67,000 reactions, 38,000 shares, 16,000 comments, the vast majority in solidarity and support. So many people giving me the internet equivalent of a high five. But there were also those who seemed to hate my "This is America" message. And they labeled me things like sensitive snowflake, idiot, loser. Throughout our history, people have used labels to divide, dehumanize, and to construct a human hierarchy, to oppress, enslave, and create fear. Black people labeled beasts and animals. Native Americans labeled savages, Asians labeled the yellow peril, and the deep anxiety these labels perpetuated turned into policy. For years, it was the law of our land. Asians could not immigrate to the United States. We were banned from becoming naturalized US citizens. We could not even legally own or lease land. The Japanese were labeled devils. Just before, more than 100,000, mostly Americans of Japanese descent, were forced into internment camps during World War II. And we have not moved away from this dangerous practice of adverse labeling, and scientific research explains why. We are predisposed to unfavorable stereotypes. Our brains respond more intensely to negative information and pessimistic points of view, and our mind struggles to shift away from the negative even when presented with positive information to the contrary. So back to my This Is America video and those ugly labels. I wasn't the only recipient. Many people on social media also labeled the driver. And you know what? So did I. I labeled the driver and anyone who dared to disparage my This Is America video racist, ignorant, and stupid. Many other people labeled the driver white and entitled. But here's the thing, I never revealed the color of her skin. So my question for you, for all of you, is did you label the driver too? How? What did she look like in your mind? Now, I was sure the labels I had pushed on people were right, and that my story showed my detractors how wrong they were. But then a very honest friend of mine burst my bubble. She said, your level of rage and vitriol is blinding you from any other perspective. And if you care to reach people who have a different point of view, you must be open to the idea that this is not a binary issue of right or wrong. That made me so mad. It also made me incredibly uncomfortable, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I decided to investigate the possibility that maybe my friend was onto something. So I sought out my critics who came in all colors to have a real conversation. I invited a truly diverse group of people to come to the table to talk and to listen. And I committed to being open to being surprised. One critic was a man named Wayne. I felt so compelled to sit down and talk to him, but I couldn't get him to agree to meet with me. So I put my investigative journalist hat on, found his address, and showed up at his house one day unannounced. You should have seen his face when he opened the door and saw me standing there. But to Wayne's credit, he didn't slam the door in my face. He invited me in. He is very courageous. I spent the afternoon with Wayne and his family, and I was surprised. The labels I had pushed on Wayne were wrong. Turns out Wayne and I have a lot in common. We're both working parents with upside-down schedules. We both like basketball. We have children the same ages who are our absolute priority. We are both vulnerable, and we both want to do better. Wayne, who is white, tells me he responded to my Facebook video out of knee-jerk fear and anger. He said he had been feeling a growing anti-white sentiment, and that after our country's last presidential election, our us versus them mentality had put him on the defensive. Wayne also told me he hadn't watched my entire Facebook video when he posted his Facebook comment. He said after I contacted him, he did watch the video in its entirety. He said at that point he had felt shame and embarrassment. He did not like the person he had become. He did not like the reflection he saw in his computer screen. So he had taken action too, reaching out of his all-white bubble, calling an old childhood friend of his who's Black, and joining that friend's all-Black fantasy football league. Wayne tells me getting to know the men in that league changed his life. My conversations with Wayne and others profoundly changed me. I now see when we label quickly and carelessly, we kill conversations before they can begin. But the possibilities for connection are limitless when we pause to consider what else might be true? When we take the film off our own lens, it becomes clear we are all just fellow human beings. And when we move in, finding and focusing on all the ways in which we are all alike, it opens up a space to dialogue about our differences. So these are the labels I choose for myself today: woman, American, Asian American, Korean American, and daughter of immigrants, friend, wife, and mom, journalist, storyteller, truth seeker, and optimist. And as I look at my labels, I find myself thinking about the driver who sparked this entire investigation. I see now, we share a lot of labels too. At the minimum, woman and friend, maybe wife and mom, and I'm pretty certain American. Thank you so much for listening today.